Rising living costs are forcing Kiwis to think carefully about work-life balance. New research from Seek found 68% of workers would pick a good balance over a bigger paycheck. But having said that, money pressures are making people weigh up the trade-offs. The study also found pay bumps can shift priorities. Funny that. Beyond cash, 43% said an extra annual leave would get them across the line. Generational differences matter as well. Younger workers are more likely to sacrifice flexibility for money, while baby boomers put balance first. Well, they've been there, done that, haven't they? Remote work, that remains a hot topic. Around 80% of those who can work from home want to stay at home. And more than half would trade it for a decent pay rise. So overall, Kiwis are trying to balance financial security with lifestyle needs. Seek's a country manager, Rob Clark, says workers aren't just choosing one over the other. And he joins me now. Rob, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Leah.
Now, Rob, when I started work back in the 80s, I'd never heard of words work-life balance, but I understand in the 1990s and the 2000s it entered the mainstream HR and management language to now, everyone talks about it. What does it mean to you?
Well, it means different things for different people, but I guess, in more recent times, working from home plays a big part in having that sort of work-life balance. And it's something that Kiwis have always aspired to have, and New Zealand always ranks incredibly high in global studies for work-life balance. So I guess it's the Kiwi lifestyle, but also, some degree of financial security.
Let's break down some of Seek's research. Firstly, it was called Money Matters. Were you looking to see what motivates us at work, Rob? Was that the whole idea behind this?
Yeah, there's a few things in there. One is just to understand the tension that has always existed between people's desire to have financial security and also work-life balance. And also just sort of how that influences employees and employers and what they need to be, careful and aware of, particularly as it pertains to sort of retention strategies, seeking what you really need in a role. Yeah.
With rising living costs, of course, a lot of us have been doing it hard for a few years also. 63% of workers I see would not take a pay cut for more flexibility. And not a surprise to you with how expensive everything is nowadays?
Not a surprise. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? You've got 7 out of 10 saying they would opt for work-life balance over a higher salary, but equally the same percentage sort of saying, but we won't take a pay cut. So again, there's that tension between the sort of harsh realities of, the cost of living, but also this desire to really enjoy the Kiwi lifestyle, if you like.
I like the look. I like the fact the survey looked at generational differences. What was the biggest differences between, say, the Gen Z and the millennials versus the older generations? I don't like baby boomers, but they were in there. I mean, I don't like the word baby boomers. Not the word I don't like baby boomers. It came out
not very
wrong.
Complimentary, is it?
I know. I meant I don't like to use the term baby boomers, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, look, the older generations obviously are opting more for work-life balance, as you said at the start, probably been there, done that, a little more financial security, whereas the younger generations, are facing sort of mounting pressures as it relates to, whether it be student loans, mortgage rates, house prices, etc. And so they're a little more hungry to go the extra mile for a little extra pay.
Although, Rob, are you seeing that? Because I always thought the younger generation kind of wanted it all straight away. So they want jobs that give them that flexibility, but they want the money. They want the good money straight away. Have they changed?
Lots of commentary around that. I mean, I'm not really sure where the truth lies, other than the realities are as they are. If you want to get ahead, you're going to need to earn a little more. We're seeing through this study that the younger generations are prepared to work longer hours and take on more responsibility if it means a pay rise, because they're very cognizant of house prices, cost of living pressures. They're feeling it every day.
COVID changed a lot of things, including how we work. Work from home arrangements are clearly a big deal. Your study showed that 80% would want compensation if they had to return to the office. And I saw that. I got to say, Rob, really, are people thinking seeing us going into work as an inconvenience that they must get compo for?
Well, be careful with that one. First of all, I think people got a taste of working from home, post-COVID, and love it, clearly. It's worth also noting that there's still 65% of the working population that simply doesn't have that option. They need to be working out of home in offices and sites, etc. So it's not the majority aren't working from home, but those who are value it enormously. It was a bit of a hypothetical question around, what would it take for you to come back in? And most are saying, well, you'd need to pay me if I had the choice. Clearly, that's not always going to be that way. Just want to make that really clear. But it just signals how valuable people see working from home. And they
I
really
work from home.
See that as a big perk.
I've got a studio, which is a big perk, and I love it. But, I also did 35 years of driving into studios. So, but interesting, I saw, I knew Gen Z they said that they were willing to return for extra cash. So that'd be right. This doesn't surprise me actually, Rob, because I think the older I get, the more holidays I want as well. And 43% said that they would take extra annual leave instead of cash. So, again, how important are perks like leave compared to, say, a pure salary increase?
Yeah, so we asked, instead of a pay rise, what would you take, or what would be your next options? And interestingly, most of those were sort of time-based perks. So as you say, annual leave was number one, but also ranked high were flexible working arrangements, reduced hours. So again, that's sort of leaning towards the work-life balance component if a pay rise wasn't an option. But I think generally the preference would be pay rise, particularly for the younger generations.
This is interesting to me. Everyone's got a figure, right? And what can change people's priorities? And apparently it's a 20% pay rise. So 20%, boy, that would be good. What exactly are we talking though, Rob? What will people do for 20% more?
Well, for working from home in particular, there was a lot who simply would not come back to the office no matter what you paid them.
No matter what
and a fairly high proportion would say, hey, if you give me something sort of between 5 and 15%, which is getting close to 20%, then I'm more interested. But yes, 20% tends to be banded around as the number. I'm not sure where it sort of came from.
Because that's a healthy pay rise.
People go, well, that's going to make a difference. Yeah,
surely it would. So I think you mentioned it when we first started talking, Rob, that these findings, these studies, are used to help employers, potential bosses, to understand the motives of what employees want today. Is that kind of what this is about?
That's right. It sort of helps, those who are working and those who are employers. From an employer's point of view, even as we've discussed, each generation has a slightly different motivation. Yeah. And so if you have a workforce that is multi-generational, then you need to understand what those motives are and factor those in when you think about retention strategies, etc. So that's really important. Let's think about the working from home component. If you've got a bunch of older generational folk, you need to know that that's a really big deal for them and a very important perk. For a job seeker or for a worker, if you like, it's about articulating what matters to them and sort of looking for all of the options available. If it's not a salary increase, then maybe it is more annual leave, or maybe it's more flexible working arrangements, etc. So it's just understanding from both sides what the motivations are, what the options are, and just sort of trying to find that happy medium.
Right, Rob, have you seen in the last year or so, let's go a year, maybe 6 months, with employment rates at the highest we've seen in a long time? Have we got, how hard is it out there? I mean, are we in that beggars can't be choosers lane at this stage?